This is Business by Design. Friendly conversations with people transforming the tech industry through design and innovation. I'm your host, Marcelo Angel, and this podcast is brought to you by Hakuna.
We have a special guest today, Mike Glezos, Vice President of Product Design and UX at Pantheon. Mike brings a wealth of experience from building and selling companies to leading design teams at some of the world's top brands. So we're excited to dive. We're going to be talking about AI. We're going to be talking about different things here. Excited to have you, Mike. So welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Yeah. Marcelo, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to talk design, excited to talk business with you.
Awesome, man. And you know what? I usually use the way we met as an example of real human connections. Like, I remember how we met. We shared an interviewing process for some company. It was a while ago, and we both remember that conversation. For some reason, we clicked back then, and then after a couple of years, we connected again, and we ended up working together and partnering. So I constantly, used our relationship as an example of, you never know where the next amazing partner, the next great people could be. So thank you for that as well. I don't know if you remember that experience, but it's
I do, absolutely. By the way, you're a great interviewer, so you have some hard hitting questions to get right down to the core of it. But you're spot on in that. Never burn bridges. Be mindful of who you're speaking to, because you never know where relationships may take you.
Yeah.
And that's why I think we both have very large networks, and take care of the folks around us for that exact reason, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And look where we've come 360. Now you're interviewing me again, right?
I know. I know. But it's been great. It's been going great. Great partnership and a great friendship. So, I would love you to introduce yourself. I know you've had some amazing experiences. You almost landed on Shark Tank and some other cool stuff. So it would be fantastic for you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Appreciate the intro there, the kind words. Located in Southern California, born and raised in Huntington Beach, around the ocean my entire life. I have surfed the waves of the ocean and the waves of the internet for the last 30 years here, since the infancy. My career is really in 3 chapters. The first being school and education, being the first to get into HTML 1.0 and web design in its infancy in the 90s. And then, entrepreneurial efforts right out the gate, starting my own agency and running a decade-long web agency, and that was called Top Lingo, building some apps and selling them, and then selling my agency. And then the third chapter of my career is kind of where we met, which is in my corporate, more mature role, where I went from running 7-figure businesses to running 8- and 9-figure businesses, which are a lot more interesting, a lot more diverse. And that corporate track has taken me in the last decade from Walmart to New Relic to where I'm at right now at Pantheon, which is very much like kind of a startup-y, Series E funded technology company that services the content management system market. So wide range of diverse of experience, 3 chapters. That's not the end of the book by any means. I'm looking forward to chapter 4. What's next in my career here?
Yeah. I mean, I know that you just mentioned that you built many companies, and actually you had a name generator app that you sold as well. What did you learn about all these experiences, and how did they influence your approach to design and entrepreneurship and the rest of the career that you've had so far?
Yeah, no, hey, it's a great question, stuff, because you're constantly learning. You have lots of takeaways. A few successes and exits, and many failures, man. On one hand, I can count some successes. On more than multiple hands, I can count the times I failed or tried to build something that just didn't work. That's a massive lesson, was learning to fail. And that was, I think every entrepreneur on the planet Earth will tell you that. It sticks by that. Is failure's a feature almost, where you are, you kind of have it baked into the process, and then learn and iterate accordingly. Another good takeaway from my entrepreneurism days, And the business name generator was pretty fun because I got to build the first real web application to generate business names on the internet, and it was a lead generation system for anybody starting a business. So all these major incorporation services and downstream services like online bookkeeping that Intuit does all have to start somewhere, and I started with a business name. And so I knew that early on and built an automated generator and an app. I got it to be number one in Google. And then some folks copied me along the way, like Shopify and Namelix, and you'll see them now in the top 5 rankings. And it was fun to build that to a point to get it to where it was a viable product and we're selling. That was my Shark Tank experience, which was pretty fun. I auditioned for the show. I got pretty far along bringing this name generator business with an agency, kind of back end behind it, saying, hey, if the name doesn't generate these names, then our agency could, or these humans could help. And it was a long process with ABC and Shark Tank there in 2012 to be able to get on the show. The night before filming, the producers called me and said, hey, we got some bad news. We're going to cancel. We were talking to the Sharks, and Mark specifically had some concerns that you'd create some names on the fly that would generate some copyright infringement or trademark issues, and they want to get it. It was kind of a little bit of a BS answer and exit. What they do is in Hollywood is they overbook contestants for any shows. So they, you know what I mean? So I was on the fringe, but I was this close to getting on the business on the show, and that was a fun little experience.
That's an amazing experience, man. And I assume that this actually prepared you in a totally different level in terms of leadership, in terms of your design perspective for the future roles that you were going to have, coming jobs.
100%. And I think a good takeaway from that, besides learning to fail and what wasn't working in the app and iterating quickly, was the second biggest takeaway that I learned from that experience that I've applied to every future endeavor since is that it's equally important to design with pixels. As designers, we're designers in the core. We do appreciate aesthetics and cleanliness and have some OCD when it comes to tight layouts and design and all that. But equally as important as the pixels is the information. What is the information you're using to make decisions and those design decisions? And these days, I nearly exclusively design with information. I talk to so many people, whether it be stakeholders in the business or our customers 1,000 times, to understand what we're trying to do to make sure that their voices and their needs and their problems are being solved in the designs that we create, or the designs that the solutions we propose in design. And because that previous company was, had to do with so much business information, right, of what mattered in starting a business, it was like a light bulb went off in my head and goes, hey, the information is absolutely as important as the visualization and the pixels.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let me go back to the beginning, actually. And when did you realize that design was going to be so big in your life, like a huge part of your life? Was it when you were really young? I know you were into photography, and other disciplines, but how did that spark started in you?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think ask any designer, where did it begin? What were you inspired by? And we all have our design competencies we index towards, whether that be illustration or photography or 3D or video, fashion. It depends what you gravitate towards, initially. For me, it was photography. I was going to be a photographer, right? I wanted to, I was setting up silly, in high school, a commercial studio shoots in my backyard and photographing all kinds of skateboarders and, surfers and fun stuff. And I went to photography school first, back in 93. And then 6 months before graduating, I go, wow, 1% of photographers actually make it, in the business. And the digital, this was Photoshop 2 at the time, had come out, and I had realized digital imaging was going to be the future. And I honestly started the last 6 months, started cheating on my homework assignments in photography school. If I couldn't shoot it in camera and I couldn't get it in lighting, I couldn't this, I would fix it in post in Photoshop 2, where the progress bar, you'd have to wait 10 minutes, man, for this thing to go
Oh
crawl
my God.
to be able to make a change and move pixels left. Then I found the first slide outputter in California, and I would digitally print that the updated images, 2 slides, turn those in as homework assignments. And the professors didn't know because they had never seen digital imaging before.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, but this is gotta be like monumentally important to learn this. And so I was on the very cusp of digital imaging, took 1 class at a city college to learn HTML, and then I became the only web designer like in Santa Barbara at the time. And then coming down to Southern California, there was really not many people like who were very good at front end design for web, and it was pretty easy to kickstart a career there.
That's awesome, man. That's an awesome story. And yeah, I remember my beginnings as well. You mentioned HTML, CSS. Man, I remember my first websites on Macromedia Flash with sounds.
Macromedia.
You remember that?
I love
for some reason,
freehand.
And yeah, oh man, we used to create some amazing interactive CDs with Macromedia Director. I think.
Ooh, Director. You're getting old
Director.
School. Before
Man.
that was Authorware, and then Director came along, and it was sort of more digestible for a user experience to be able to, but it was very difficult to use.
And for some reason, everything had to have sounds everywhere, like Flash websites with beep, beep, like all the buttons and everything.
Did you make Flash
games?
games? Were you making Flash games at all?
We got to do some basic Flash games, but nothing fancy. But it's always great to remember those times because now, you know, everything is so different in a good sense in many ways. So yeah, and let me go back. Let me go to the next question that I have for you. And you were an early adopter on the offshore resources in design and working with different teams in so many places around the globe. And what are the advantages and challenges that did you encounter, and how do you see the future of offshore design evolving?
Yeah. It's a great question, imperative for where I started at and with my own agency, and then where we are now today. When I started, it was incredibly bootstrapped. Started a web agency. I was all front end, all design, all like business. My partner was all engineering, and there's 2 of us. We lived off top ramen. We had no money. We had to bootstrap ourselves to get the first clients, then keep putting money back into the business. And then, to scale, we need engineering resources initially, and just something where we could not afford. So cost was the number one driving factor for us to start looking at offshore resources. So in the early 2000s, I got lucky enough that one of our friends was at USC, and he was moving back to Indonesia. And he's like, Mike, I can start an offshore office with you there. And we partnered up and built a small, team out in Jakarta. Flew there several times, set up business and banking and all, and got it going. And that was kind of the infancy to introduce to offshore. It has pros and cons for sure. Offshore does. Craft quality, language barriers, time zone barriers, holidays, expectations and standards. I consider offshore partners 100% partners. As you know, as we work with Hakuna, there's 3 or 4 dedicated folks who are embedded into our teams and projects that we give full access to all of our internal communications. And we consider them internal partners, sort of an extension really to our model. But the challenges you face there with that for us has always been craft quality. Every location I've ever worked with, and I've worked with offshore resources in Eastern Europe, in Southeast Asia, in India, in South America, in Canada, and the key component to that success has always been like, are they experts in their domain, in their subject matter? With Hakuna, you're fantastic, phenomenal experts in user experience and design. And that's what we usually, we're not asking you, Marcelo, can you help us with database schemas, and architecture of backend, server infrastructure or cloud infrastructure. That's not what your subject matter expertise is. However, we do have contractors offshore that we can work with. So the craft quality and has been very important to us, and that's what I over decades looking for folks to work with in design. Hakuna has been absolutely top notch when it comes to design quality and UX quality of thinking.
Thank you so much for the kind words. We're really happy to be working with you and your company, and I think that translates into the type of the values that we share, the ways, the methods, and the communication is so key, right? Like we constantly have all these challenges in terms of how we actually get, as you said, embedded into your team and how we actually provide the value that you need instead of, having two things that feel totally separate. And how do you have a team being creative and innovative at the same time, understanding what the business is trying to accomplish? So yeah, I mean, all the challenges that you mentioned in terms of quality and all these things are constantly a concern for many of the potential partners that we may have. Is there like one thing, one strategy, or one secret sauce that you could mention for this type of companies to say, this is how we do things, or this is how working with a company from outside could actually work and provide value to you?
Yeah. Just going back to craft quality, the tip for anybody working with anybody outside their location is to hire for talent, not for cost. And this NBA is probably the greatest example of this. A decade ago, they became incredibly internationally recognized, where a significant number of the top 10 players in the NBA right now are not from the United States. They are international. What that is you're open-minded to say, look, talent is global. Talent is not national, right? And forget about costs or, how much it costs. Is who's the best possible hire or partner on a position that you have for this role, whether it's a junior designer or whether it's a senior creative director. It really is like the tip here is hired for talent.
Mike, next question I have for you is, we usually talk about the great companies like Airbnb or Tesla or Apple, all these companies that usually talk about amazing design. They make it happen in terms of, having design as the main engine for their success in terms of business as well, and from your perspective, how do UX and UI contribute to creating that business value, and how do you approach balancing short-term interface improvements, for example, on the UI, with a long-term experience investments?
Several questions in there. They're all good. We talked about the reason why Airbnb is a unique case because Brian Chesky is a designer at heart. He's one of those rare CEOs who is a designer. But anybody else like Tesla, who or any major organizations who are especially from the Silicon Valley roots or tech roots, understand that they have to have design has to have a seat at the table, which means there has to have a position in their in their leadership team. And it is that good design equals good business. Therefore, you literally need the appropriate design leadership representation. The challenges a lot of those leaders face, especially or companies that are maybe underserved or under quality in their design and their product or their services or their applications or their branding, it's a lot of times comes from a confusion of they're not their leaders don't understand the distinction between UI and UX and then UX research. I can tell you some horror stories. You can get into that later if you want, about, some design leaders who were straight pixel pushers, and they saw designers as pencils, not partners, in which case, what they're focused on is on the UI and the aesthetics. They're not focused on the UX or the psychology behind it, right? So there really is, for any designers out there, you want to be well-rounded. There's a trifecta of three things that you need to excel at and be very good at. And you can right now take a self-analysis and go, look, I as a designer have a C on a level of scale of 0 to 10. You barely know anything about a subject, and 10, you're the professional of expert. Where are you on the scale in UI and visual design? How well do you create visual assets, understand layout, get aesthetics, and get the understanding of beauty or branding? Then there's how much do you excel in user experience, in UX, or in product design? And that's really about the psychology of the user. Can you create flows? Can you put yourself in the mindset of the user? Can you understand the customer problems you're trying to solve, right? And then really the third thing, which now is underrepresented a lot or misused a lot, is UX research. Every designer on our team is also a researcher. You go test and validate your ideas. Do you know how to do that? Yeah. Do you know how to get right feedback? Do you know how to alleviate bias? Do you know how to present to leadership to that of why your design is solving a problem, and back it up with some data-informed design decisions, right? So that trifecta becomes incredibly important for every designer, whoever is listening to this, or is just out there that I help mentor or coach, is are you good at UX, UI, and UXR? What is your weakness? How do you level that up?
Great answer. I had some follow-up questions, but you have already answered them all. So great work, great stuff. And absolutely, man, I'm totally passionate about data-driven design. And I'm going to go ahead and connect it with the next topic that I know that you're passionate about as well, which is AI. And how are you leveraging your mindset in terms of data, personalization, and all the information out there with all the new AI tools out there? Besides, I know there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of trendy stuff, but there's a lot of really valuable stuff as well that are bringing a lot of things to the table, right?
Yeah. You're hitting a subject here that it's not like AI is not for passion, love I was born with having. It is a necessary learn or be left behind, and that's always been a mantra of us, is continuous learning is imperative. And right now it's scaring designers. And their biggest question is like, is it going to take your job? And the answer is, this is quoting Scott Galloway, NYU professor and forecaster and predictor. It's a good quote, which is like, AI is not going to take your job, but somebody who knows AI is going to take your job.
I love that.
And they honestly provide more value to the business or more value to the solution that you do. And it is another tool that is in your toolkit for process or how you use it. And the other thing to know is that, like, the worst of AI, the least quality and the least effective it's ever going to be is today. Every day forward from today is just going to get better. And at some point, it's like Microsoft Office in the 90s or desktop publishing, right? Like, you either start to learn it or figure out how to deal with it, or you're going to get left behind, right? I was going to show you this. If I brought a slide with me here.
Fantastic.
If that's okay.
Let's do it. I was gonna say, while you're putting up the slide, I totally agree with you. I mean, there's a lot of people like freaking out for the last couple of years in terms of AI. AI has been around for quite some time, but I was always part of the optimistic team, right? Like, I think this can help you be so much better in so many ways, and it's going to be, like you mentioned, even better as time goes. Of course, there's gotta be challenges. There's gotta be a lot of things that will need to adapt in all senses. But it's totally exciting, And I think that's the number one reason why I'm totally looking forward to everything that's coming. So,
totally. Well, we the design and creative community got blindsided by this. We did not expect. We thought that AI would be serving robots and doing my dishes. Marcelo, like, seriously, if I go in the kitchen right now, that is the only thing I want this thing to do. We all hate it. Nobody in the family, none of the kids want to do dishes. It's a waste of our time, and it piles up every single day. This is a function that a robot in my house needs to, like, fully take care of. But instead, we all got bombarded with marketing automation, marketing AI, creative AI, generative image AI, layout AI, and all of this. And it sucks. Like most of the generative AI you could say is like peaked as far as it's fun and nichey. It's very difficult and purposeful. It doesn't look good, but that doesn't matter right now, because what matters is this is just the infancy. It will understand your brand. And this is a project I'm working on at Pantheon, is how to feed our brand standards into AI to be able to output Pantheon branded imagery. And this is exactly what Adobe Gen Studio just launched with last week. They're solving that exact problem for marketers and to better create marketing assets that are branded for the company and within seconds. Canva has been doing this for a few months, and others are looking at this space. So it's already front facing in our community. But you ask yourself, like, hey, the tech companies, man, they could have just like cured cancer. Like, they put billions of dollars and focused on something. Why did they go bring out a generative imagery in AI as a deal? And the answer is like, it's their ad revenue driven. You look at Meta, you look at Google, right? Like they made their money, and they make their money in advertising, and the better tools in facilitation and effectiveness they can provide their advertisers in the business who advertise and pay them money. This is where they focus. This is why it came out first. So it's here, and we got to deal with it. Chart real quick that I'm showing on the screen. What's important, this was a study done by Figma in 2023. This is kind of spot on about AI's like saturation in our world. Content and copy for sure. In imagery, yes. I want to call out where like my most effectiveness has been in integrating AI into our design workflows has been research and content synthesis. We do take this call with a customer right now that we're having that's recorded. We do upload it to a product called Marvin, which is an AI research-based SaaS application. And it's in seconds synthesizes all of those customer insights and design decisions we could possibly make, and then creates a repository of all the information. So every subsequent video we have, we can use their AI search to be able to quickly find what are the most, I could type in search right now, what are the most requested mobile product features that our customers will use in our mobile application. And I can go through it immediately goes through hundreds of customer interviews and comes back with the right insights, right? That is very helpful for the workflow here. That helps our designers make decisions.
I wonder how you used to do all this without all these tools. I mean, and most of the companies, I mean, must be a lot of companies still not using and not leveraging all this new AI stuff to be faster and to get all these results in no time. You know,
that's what what we make everybody ask the question is: does it save you time? Does it make you more efficient? And does it improve the user experience? Then use the AI tool. If it doesn't meet those standards, then don't waste your time with it, right? And there's lots of tools out there that aren't worth investing in.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And let me look into the future a little bit here. And related to this, with all this evolving technologies and all the upcoming changes and the current changes that are happening in the industry and design, how do you see the industry of experience design, let's say, I don't know, 5, 10, I don't want to go into 15 years because that's a long time, but how do you see everything, like say in 10 years? How do you imagine the world of experience design?
I wish I had a crystal ball, Marcelo. Then obviously I'd be a massive lottery winner, and I'd be sitting on a beach in Fiji right now, surfing and just enjoying life.
That would be amazing.
I think there's been 2 points in my 30-year career where it's eye-openingly like obvious that there's some impactful movement happening that I need to be a part of and understand. And the first was back in the late 90s with the infancy of the web and the internet and web design, and how much the internet was going to change our lives.
Okay.
That was the first. We've had a lot of major moments since, cloud computing, you can argue, and mobile phones and iPhones and whatever, right?
Yeah.
But so mobile design was in there as far as, like impactful. But what I'm talking about AI, and I don't want to dominate our conversation here about it because people are getting a little bit AI fatigue, is that I do know that this is monumental, where we as designers should be like connected to. The future of what we're doing with cloning and cloning workflows and your daily tasks that are mundane to improve your experiences, that very quickly I can automate some of the practices and things I'm doing. Some of the layout generation in Figma. Figma's already got AI features. Like those are basic, that's low-hanging fruit. The answer is I don't know, but I do know I got to stay connected to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where we're going. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And on one side, these are great companies doing great stuff, and with the time and resources and all the innovation engine working and built, how do you think like early stage startups or small teams or early founders could actually leverage all this? Without all this, how can we find a way for these companies to prioritize design and leveraging new technologies, when there's so many things going on, especially in the beginnings of a venture?
Yeah. You being a startup and and then the size of organization is a great example. Is you have the ability to test, bring in tools and processes very quickly and make quick decisions on whether they can make your processes or workflows more efficient or more productive, right? Bigger. You're like what I consider like organizations your size in the 20, 50, 100 range that are more smaller SMB based or just smaller startups. You have the ability to be nimble and fail quickly, test things out. You're like a speedboat or a jet ski, right? You can move fast and pivot quickly. Bigger organizations where I'm at Pantheon or where I was at Walmart, they're like cruise ships, and they can't just turn on a dime, and you're constantly. A lot of these bigger organizations can't touch AI tools because they don't have corporate policies, decided about their maturity or literacy levels around them, and so they just ban them, right? And so they can't test some of these new tools. So I mentioned Marvin early on, like that's where like take a look at that, like AI research tool or that research repository. That's one tool where you can just quickly sign up today, adopt, put it in a process, test it out on a design sprint you have for one client, and it don't work, throw it away. If it doesn't, then invest in the app and move on. So like that ability to be nimble and quickly at your scale or that business scale is in the design role is probably the best advice you can get is keep testing out some of these new tools and processes. Right?
Mm-hmm. Awesome, perfect. All right, I wanted to shake things a little bit, and I have a fun special section. It's just a different way to ask questions here, but just to make it a little bit different. And there's a section called Design Disaster Confession. Everyone has mistakes, disaster that you've learned from, and especially in the early stages of your career, for sure. Can you share a design disaster that from the early days or something that really didn't go well, and that, of course, I'm sure it brought a lot of learning?
And I have stories, and you have stories. I think designers 6 months into their career have disaster stories, right? And I think they vary degree of like mild discomfort to dumpster fires, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate you asking. The two there's a couple that come to mind, but they're both related. And they both have to do with managing up or managing very aggressive owners of companies who have affinity for pixel pushing. And I was in the 2005 to 2010 range. I was doing a lot of design for mortgage companies during the boom and bust there in the United States. I had this I called him the rave mortgage dude because he just like he's a mega millionaire who drove the most gnarliest Ferraris and Testarossas and Lamborghinis, and he would pump like serious EDM, hardcore techno in the office because he felt like it would make it more productive for his 100 employees. Can you imagine that, going to an office and just hearing So I would go visit, do design like crits with him in person, and I would just like get headaches, like literally trying to talk, like, not get distracted by his music. But the disaster was really just letting him drive the design and mucking up the mocks so much that this needs to be this color, this needs to be in this angle, and not having enough of a backbone at the time that early in my career, because he was paying a lot of money to like really be honest with, the highest paid person in the room, and so the disaster really was, and I had this multiple times, which I learned over the career how to manage up. The disaster was just letting the stakeholder abuse the good work, and not letting it get to become good quality. And it was evident too when we launched the thing. He just got blasted by his customers, and like egg on his face when it came to like, oh man, I can't use this. This is like awful. It doesn't work, And it's hard to go like at an early stage, I told you so, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another small section, Mike, the business and design fantasy draft. And this is just, let's say that you could draft 3 design trends or principles to guide the future of your company. What would they be?
Yeah. Only 3. It's kind of tough. Design system is like, would be probably my number one focus to start with. And the power of having a quality and consistency control that enables your engineers and product folks to be able to quickly scale at speed. Every major organization has a design system and a design system commitment, and there's varying degrees. So I wouldn't want to say like, hey, draft this tech or this, say all the UI and the design systems in Figma, and then we use Storybook as our repository. Like all that's going to be variable. Just the concept of having a core foundational system that they'll be serving. Design systems will be integrated into basically everything into the future here, and it's important to be like very important, connected to that. The second was what I was talking about earlier, a little bit what Gen Studio just did, and that is the ability to control quality and consistency at the branding level to feed applications that are going to create assets, and designers are going to create assets. So what they're doing is saying, hey, can we quickly create marketing, ad banners or marketing landing pages, but have them absolutely branded with my company's image, with Hakuna's image or Pantheon's image, right? That is a game changer for all of us. That's coming around. The others, I'm going to say, like, obviously Figma. You can't not go with one of the most innovative, game-changing tools for designers on the planet Earth. Glad Adobe didn't buy them. I think Adobe dude, remember the start of this conversation? We were talking about macromedia. Adobe is typically has happened to be like a buy and bury, scenario where they can take, core tech or core founders and integrate them into the Adobe world, which tends to be a little bit legacy. There's also a cruise ship and moves slower. And Figma is completely the opposite of that. They built an infrastructure, said we're gonna be disruptive. We're going to change how designers work, where they work, how we ship product and product features to them and enable them at a much more rapid pace. We're going to change the system. Tesla does this with cars and batteries. Like Figma alone is you can't not draft a fantasy tool or concept without including them in the top 3, right? Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And the last one for that is, which company, past or present, would you draft as the best example of design-driven growth?
Yeah. At Figma, and so that's an easy question. I kind of just got into that. That's the love, absolutely a massive fanatical fan about what they're doing, everything from the leadership down.
Mm-hmm. What about is there any company outside of the design industry that you like and are leveraging design in a good sense?
Yeah. So step back out of what you're used to in Pixels and look at Make and what Make is doing for workflow automation. And think of you as a designer, and you have a series of, or you're trying to produce a certain amount of things in a specified workflow. And Make is a way to kind of no code or low code experiences, or in the application sense, saying like, I need to create a sign up form for a mobile app, and I can create the workflow in Make that says collect the information here, connect to this database, output be send the user to these confirmation forms, and you can quickly, designers can, without coding experience, no code, low code is still kind of shifty and not fully like 100%, like non-technically intuitive, but it is certainly getting better and better every day. And I would encourage designers to get out of their comfort zone in the pixel world they know, with what's happening with, like vector-based design apps, and, with or in Photoshop or whatever you're working with, and go, look, there's more to your workflow in what you do than just opening up the app and moving some things around, right? So I take a look at Mate.
Fantastic. Yeah. I've seen them. I know them, of course. I've seen the platform, and every year that we go to this 2 or 3 conferences, they always have a booth there, and we always talk to the people from Make, and we love their branding and everything they're doing. So it resonates with me. Awesome, Mike. We have Awesome, Mike. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, and we are starting to be close to wrapping up here, but I have a couple more questions. And we talked a lot about design-driven mindset, and I have a question that we already discussed a little bit about this, but how do you encourage teams to prioritize design at Pantheon, for example, in terms of what strategies have worked well for embedding a strong design culture?
Yeah. Spoke a little bit earlier to the subject, and it's I don't want to get too motivational speaker, because Simon Sinek is the dude who is classified start with why. That's his kind of a bit of his brand, and and stuff, but he's spot on. It is a lot of times you start trying to solution as designers, and jumping quickly into where your head's going of, I could, illustrate this, or I could, draw this flow, or it could be just like X. But they fail to tie it to the why. Like, why does this matter to the customer? Like, why does what you're trying to propose matter to the business requirements, or solve? What is it solving here? And that's what matters at the hey, how do you translate an organization to be design driven? Is show your value in understanding the why. This is what your business leaders and your CEO and any of the C-suite, or we call them ELT here, or executive leadership team, wants to hear, is they'll understand and tied to what problems they're solving from a business and like product standpoint of view. I've also been very lucky, 100% subscribed to the like the Google started this, and it's the Silicon Valley model of the 3-legged stool, or the trifecta of product, design, engineering. We call this PDE here, and they're equally as equal partners in solving problems, which means you have to understand what can be coded, otherwise you can't design it with an engineering standpoint. You have to understand what the product manager is trying to solve, and what the roadmap looks like. So you're like not just designing for the moment, you're designing for the future, and that trilogy or trifecta becomes incredibly important. So when I see companies who don't have design-driven mindset, they also don't embrace this, the proven formula for how to build great products and services of having a connected product design and engineering like leadership team and teams together, right?
Totally. Yeah. Thank you for that. And yeah, I have 2 more questions. And looking back at your career and around everything that we've discussed and that we went through from your amazing journey, what would you say has been the most rewarding part of it? What was the most rewarding part of your journey?
It's another good question. I talked about, certainly up there is learning to fail. In surfing, it's the wipeout, right? Or in skateboarding, it's the slam. It's like you master that and you master how to ride. For me, though, probably one above that is the most memorable part about my journey, and it will be for you as well in your career as a young designer, is the people. Like who's along the way, and you're gonna remember. You're not going to remember the product design. You're not going to remember the mock. You're not going to remember the prototype. Like you'll have something nostalgic 10 years from now and you pull it off of some drive and you're, oh, wow, I did that. Oh, God, that sucked. Right. It was terrible, but you are going to remember the people. You're going to remember the process it took to get to that, the blood, sweat, and tears in the production, how difficult it was to get out to market or to that customer. And so like the most memorable all parts of my journey is the people that I got to share it with along the way.
Fantastic. Absolutely. And I totally agree. And we talked about it at the beginning of the conversation. But for me, it's people, man. It's all about the people. And it's what actually helped me in so many ways. And I like to talk to people and learn from them and talk to people like you and listen about your journey. And yeah, what's next for you, Mike? Like any projects, personal goals, what's coming for Mike Glezos?
I don't have the crystal ball again, but I do know that I'm certainly in a boomerang part of my career. I started as an entrepreneur, my own agency, my own business, and I've got that journey kind of coming full circle, where I went to, after my entrepreneurial days, going to Walmart, the largest company on the planet Earth, that's a corporation level that is not perfect for me in this part of my career. I've been kind of scaling down. I'm now at like a late stage startup. And then, what's next for me is going back to those entrepreneurial roots. You'll see me launching some apps in the next couple years here. You'll see me investing into some AI technologies, as you probably guessed from this conversation. It's what's next for me is chapter 4, which is getting back to my roots.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you, Mike, for sharing your insights and experiences. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. And again, thank you for being such a great partner. And yeah, Mike, I will see you soon.
Marcelo, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be mine. I appreciate it.
Have a good day.